is the Max Steel way.
Alright, let's get this out of the way. Yes, this tale is a prequel to the Hugh Jackman flick Real Steel. I know, I'm surprised too. Much like Goosebumps' Click and Are You Afraid of the Dark's The Tale of the Dream Girl, this magical tale had its gimmick stolen for a big Hollywood feature film. Cinematic Universe. This episode was based on Richard Matheson's short story, Steel, where robot boxing has exploded in popularity in the future year of 1974. Yeah, it sure does suck that the WWE was wiped out back in the 60s, and we've adapted to them robot fighters. About as accurate as our 2015 hoverboards. Okay, so aside from the funny historical inaccuracies, this episode is honestly nothing all that special. We follow a former human boxing pro nicknamed Steel, played by American badass Lee Marvin.
Gonna paint your wagon, gonna paint it fine. Gonna use oil-based paint, cause the wood is pine.
Now, I like Lee Marvin, but his acting is wasted on some generic dialogue in an average sports film. Lee Marvin and his cynical mechanic Paul are trying to make a new name for themselves in the world of robot death battles, when they try to build their own robot to have him enter the fighting rings. Sadly, they struggle to get with the times, and their robot is not as sufficient as the Terminators these rich pro managers have. They're able to enter into an amateur fight at some dive bar, but their crappy Windows 7 robot breaks down. So they can only follow the advice of Grandpa Simpson.
If you can't build a robot, be a robot. That's it!
Yep, Lee Marvin pretends to be his own robot and fights a Terminator in a death battle, so they can still get paid. It's stupid, but respectable. And he gets his butt whooped.
Go!
I'm not surprised. As much of a badass as Lee Marvin is, even he cannot take on a Terminator in fisticuffs. This episode was supposed to subvert your expectations by having this rad underdog lose his showdown, but honestly it's kind of obvious he was going to lose. He's fist-fighting a machine. Of course Lee Marvin was going to fail.
Oh, it's so obvious. I would have never thought of that.
You see, the writer does everything in his power to set this up like a Rocky story, where the underdog will rise to the occasion, but surprise, he loses because a robot is stronger. Lee Marvin barely survives this, but gets some money, which he will use to fix his busted-up robot homeboy. And that's all. It just ends with Lee Marvin losing and vowing to mend his robot, who we never see in action ever. All in all, it was not a very great episode. Rod Serling was a huge fan of boxing, and this plot was meant to be his love letter to the sport, but to be honest, it was kind of meh, and doesn't stick out as much compared to the show's better titles. It's not awful or anything, but it's just so standard, especially by today, and has nothing memorable about it besides the TV tropes. I don't recommend it, since it just feels like filler. You'd probably get more joy out of watching the Real Steel movie instead, or better yet, actual Robot Wars. This is just meh. I grant the original Steel adaptation a silver skull. Not too bad, but by now, it is an outdated model.
He's more machine now than man.
The Twilight Zone.